Now I'm going to kind of be on the fly here a little bit for this episode of the Big Ten Huddle with the transfer portal stuff. So if you would kind of give me some time here, because I'm going to try to give you guys some graphics and stuff like that here next to me for the players that I'm talking about, because you guys have suggested that. And so I do want to try and give that to you. So right now, visits are crucial in the transfer portal with there being a dead period coming up. It's just Monday to Wednesday next week. It's not a super long dead period, but it is, in fact, a dead period. And so there are going to be a lot of schools that are trying to get players on campus to visit. You might see some players randomly pop up for a Sunday type of visit, but for right now, this is the information we're working off of, knowing kind of what's happened on Friday, Saturday, stuff like that, and going to get into some of these Big Ten battles and kind of talk about which Big Ten teams are battling against other Big Ten teams. Obviously, there's non-Big Ten teams in these as well, but we're going to typically just reference the Big Ten teams as that is what we focus on here on the Big Ten Huddle. How many times can I say the Big Ten in a minute? That was a lot of times to be able to say that. So let's start here first with, again, there we go. Got it working there. Sahir West, edge from James Madison, currently battling over him, looks to be Ohio State and UCLA. The Texas A&M is also in on this one a little bit. But Sahir West is from James Madison. He was a redshirt freshman this past year. Had a very good season as a redshirt freshman for James Madison, and Bob Chesney from James Madison would obviously like to have him back. West had seven sacks this season, lining up primarily on the edge for James Madison. However, he did move inside a little bit, showing a good amount of versatility, especially with that 6'3", 220 pounds that he has on him there. I do think that Ohio State would probably want to bulk him up a little bit. We'll see what UCLA would like to do with him, but Chesney obviously seemed to be pretty confident with him there, and he did get 7 sacks this season at James Madison. He is the number 169th player in the transfer portal, number 17 defensive lineman there in the transfer portal as well. So West, I think a decision is coming here pretty quick. He's already visited his top 3 in Ohio State, UCLA, and Texas A&M. Feel like it's probably between UCLA and Ohio State, but you also never know. Texas A&M could have made a very lucrative offer that he decides to go with as well. So we'll see what happens in this one, but I think this is a recruitment that both UCLA and Ohio State would obviously really like to really like to have go their way in this one. So next one we're going to look at here is Smith Snowden. He is going to be a senior cornerback out of Utah, the number 45 player in the transfer portal, number 3 cornerback. And right now, you kind of have in the Big Ten, Oregon and Michigan going after him. Michigan would obviously be a desirable spot for him, reconnecting with Kyle Whittingham, some of the staff, and things like that, that maybe he knew there from Utah. Oregon is also, closer to home. It's on that side. And Oregon, obviously, continuing to try and put some more veterans in that secondary for Oregon, as they like to do with the transfer portal. It would be a really good move for them. And then Notre Dame is kind of the other one that's in this as well. Colorado, BYU are in this a little bit too, but it sounds like it's really more of an Oregon, Notre Dame, Michigan type of matchup. Now, Michigan, just lost out on Teo Johnson, so not every single Utah player is going to Michigan, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They got, I believe it was a Henry Daly to go there, so that's good news for them, but it definitely shows that Michigan is not just going to gobble up every single Utah player that goes in the transfer portal. I like Oregon the most in this one right now, but you never know. We'll see what happens. He's visited every school at this point, and he plans to visit Oregon this weekend. We're unsure if that is on Sunday or Saturday, but I would think that after visiting all of his schools, unless he has an additional one that he wants to go to, I do think that he probably is going to have a decision coming soon there for them as well. All right, moving on to the next one. We have, let me pull them up here again. Thank you for the patience. Former Ohio State wide receiver Quincy Porter, who has a number of teams going after him. So his recruitment in the transfer portal is very much so in its infancy. I mean, I guess team could bring him in and he could commit very quickly, but it sounds like there's a whole lot of teams that are very, very interested in Quincy Porter and want to try and bring them on his squad, on their squad. And so in that situation, you would think Porter would probably want to try to take as many visits as possible and really rack up some of the NIL offers in this as well. Ohio State is not trying to get Quincy Porter back as far as we know. They were trying a little bit with Milan Graham. However, I think Milan Graham is probably trending toward Notre Dame. We'll see how that one ends out. But it sounds like the Big Ten teams involved here are UCLA, Washington, Michigan, and Wisconsin. There's a whole litany of other non-Big Ten teams, Alabama, Miami, Virginia Tech, as James Franklin was recruiting him very hard when he was at Penn State, and a lot of these young players do like to kind of follow James Franklin to where he goes. So Porter is a hot commodity. There's info coming out that he will visit and has visited and has visits that are kind of lined up at this point, but people aren't really sure exactly what those are. There was a very early rumor that he was visiting Michigan, put out by another place. However, I don't think Michigan is going to get Quincy Porter here. Porter wants to play and he wants to earn money. And right now, Michigan looks like the favorite to land Jamie French, who is best friends with Andrew Marsh. So not bad news for Michigan because you could bring Jamie French in instead, but definitely, probably not looking at Michigan. We'll see what happens. Wisconsin does have a lot of connections with Ohio State. You saw Bryce West go there. Aaron Scott, who we're going to talk about in a minute, he is considering Wisconsin as well. So it's not uncommon to see Wisconsin players go to Ohio State and Ohio State players go to Wisconsin. That can sometimes happen with the connection that Luke Fickell has to the University of Ohio State, as that is his alma mater. And then we're also, you can kind of read from what other people are saying and kind of go through some of the stuff as well, that UCLA is being very aggressive here as well. UCLA really wants to give Nico Iamaleava much better weapons this year, and Quincy Porter would definitely fit that bill. If you ask me, sounds like Miami is really, really big into this one. Sounds like Virginia Tech is big in this one. I could see UCLA and Wisconsin making good runs as well, but we'll have to see what happens here. Wisconsin's really stepping up their NIL game this year, the transfer portal, so we'll see what goes on there. So another one in the transfer portal from Ohio State, just mentioned him earlier, Aaron Scott. He's going to be a true junior, number 202 player in the transfer portal, number 19 cornerback there. He has a number of schools going after him, not quite as long as Quincy Porter, but kind of the four that seem to be the most right now are Wisconsin, Oregon, Tennessee, and LSU. So just talking about Wisconsin and Oregon, again, talked about that connection that Luke Fickell has to Ohio State and how that's not unlikely for that kind of stuff to happen to where Wisconsin gets an Ohio State player and vice versa. Another piece that does get talked about here a little bit is that Aaron Scott, one of his best friends, Bryce West, has committed to Wisconsin, and Bryce West got a pretty lucrative NIL deal to be able to go there to Wisconsin. And so Wisconsin, if they still have some NIL money for a cornerback, they might go after Aaron Scott Jr. as well. He's also possibly going to visit Oregon at some point as well. Doesn't really seem to fit what Oregon wants right now. I would think that Oregon would want more of a veteran cornerback at this point. However, Aaron Scott is a junior, so maybe he fits that bill well enough. He doesn't have as much starting experience. He's been at Ohio State for 2 seasons and he's played some games, but he's not started there at Ohio State yet. And so you do wonder kind of how that would work out there a little bit as well. All right, moving on to our next one. You have Michael Bennett from Yale, the offensive lineman who is receiving interest from both Oregon and Indiana. Now, he is just coming off a visit from Alabama, so Alabama is in this one as well. But from everything that people are saying and that we're kind of hearing is that both Oregon and Indiana are interested at setting up a visit with Michael Bennett. Now, if I'm Michael Bennett, I don't know why I wouldn't go to either of those two to go for a visit. But, how hard are they pushing? Are other schools maybe being more aggressive? All of this stuff kind of comes into play. Indiana obviously wants to shore up their offensive line stuff. Michael Bennett doesn't even have a rating or a ranking in the transfer portal yet. He entered very early on, but we'll see what they come up with, but he does have some good size. 6'5", 310 pounds would definitely be a mauler on your offensive line there. And Oregon, as we know, loves to get some offensive linemen out of the portal, and Indiana in need of doing that as well. In somebody like, Bennett, who would be a senior, played a lot of football, not necessarily at the FBS level, but has played a lot of football. And maybe Kirk Cinetti sees something in him with his magic scouting eye that he is just so well known for at this point. So we'll see what happens there. Next one is actually a combo of players, Joshua Dye and Josiah Dye. Joshua Dye is a running back out of Southern Utah. He is also not have a transfer portal ranking or rating or anything like that. However, he did very well for himself at the FCS level. I believe he was an FCS All-American there. And then his brother, Josiah Dye, plays safety. Rutgers and UCLA are the two that kind of seem to be in this one the most, especially from the Big Ten. You could see some other schools possibly pop up. And there are definitely other schools that are interested in him outside of the Big Ten, but those seem to be the two Big Ten ones as well. He just got done visiting Rutgers, and sounds like that visit went well, so maybe the two will go there. And then UCLA, he took a visit on earlier in the week, but since then, UCLA has gotten commitments from Wayne Knight, the former James Madison running back, and Dylan Lee as well. And so that's kind of rounding out their backfield. So you question if they would go with somebody like Joshua Dye. And in this situation, I mean, no disrespect, but teams are really kind of going after this combo of Joshua and Josiah, more so for Joshua. Josiah, not a bad player. He played some at Southern Utah, but definitely not the impact player that people project that Joshua Dye could be. So in this situation, you'd be bringing Josiah Dye on, but probably not to the level as maybe some people would think. Immediate starter caliber type of guy as well. All right. We can go ahead and keep running through this. Defensive tackle. Jasir Whittington from Pitt, defensive tackle. If you kind of got some different Big Ten teams in here as well. As you can see, On3 currently has him as, being predicted to go to Nebraska. So that seems to be what's going to happen here. However, there's possible interest from Illinois and a little bit of speculation. There could be some interest from Indiana as well. So does Jasir Whittington, kind of hold off a little bit, maybe look and see if one of these two teams bring him in for a visit, or does he just, he liked Nebraska so much, he commits, he goes there. It is what it is. There's other schools like Baylor and Utah, South Carolina's rumored, UConn was rumored a little bit to be interested here as well. But so far, Illinois targeted him. That they've not, they have a huge need for defensive tackles, but it doesn't sound like they've been super aggressive. He's kind of on their radar, but I think you're going to need to move quicker than this if you're going to get Jasir here. And then Indiana might look at him, but they look at him more as a complimentary piece. So if he wants to go someplace where he might get paid more and have a little bit more opportunity to play, not saying he would for sure play, he would, have to compete and everything. Nebraska might be that place for him. Another guy that we have mentioned before on here because he was a shocking exit for Michigan, Jordan Young, the true freshman this season that got some time there to play at Michigan a little bit. Wasn't a big starter or anything like that, but got some playing time. He is the number 140 player in the transfer portal on the On3 industry and the number 15 safety. Jordan Young, he's got interest from multiple Big Ten teams. Also, NC State and Vanderbilt outside of the Big Ten are showing some interest in him. But UCLA, USC, and a return to Michigan are all on the table. UCLA is working to try and get him on campus, trying to get him on a visit as soon as they can, trying to before that Monday dead period starts. But obviously, if that doesn't happen, that would be more in favor of some other teams. And then USC kind of seems to be in the mix here a little bit, but there's not a whole lot of concrete stuff. You just kind of hear their name being talked about a little bit, and almost every single writer is putting their name out there. So not a whole lot to know with USC other than their name just keeps being mentioned. And then I think that the return to Michigan is probably what is going to happen here for Jordan Young. You've seen entries of Brandon Hillman and TJ Metcalf into the portal here lately, and both of those leaving makes it likely, but not necessarily a guarantee that Jordan Young would come back. But I think the bigger thing is that it does sound like Michigan has lost out on Teo Johnson, who is likely going to go to UCLA at this point. And I think that probably is, the two things working together there. UCLA gets Teo Johnson, and then Michigan has Jordan Young there as well. And so, Michigan did bring in some other safeties as well, so it's not a guarantee, Utah safeties as well. So it's not a guarantee by any means that it would work out for them, but that is kind of something you have to pay attention to there. All right, last two, and these ones are going to be a little bit more obscure. Maybe obscure is not the right word. That makes it sound like they're not good or anything. But Dion Crawford, linebacker from Buffalo. There's been some speculation that teams might kind of move him around a little bit. He's 6'1", 235. We'll see what happens with some teams maybe wanting to utilize him in some different ways. He is the number 1,401 player in the transfer portal. Number 140. Oh, that's his high school ranking right there. His portal ranking must not be out. I apologize. Yeah, it looks like they don't have his portal ranking there. So no ranking in the portal yet. I apologize for that. However, he did visit Michigan State this weekend, and there are some thoughts that Penn State and Wisconsin could be after him with some interest, possibly contacting him with a visit sometime soon as well. Dion Crawford had a good season this year at Buffalo and could be a contributor from Michigan State this year or this coming year as well. And then finally, we're going to end it with a guy, D3 player, who actually is not he's not even on three, so I'm going to use 24/7 here. Liam Denitz, I couldn't find anything with people saying his name, so I apologize. Denitz, he is somebody that is an edge rusher at the D3 level, Hope College. He's an edge rusher there. It sounds like UCLA has some interest here. In Michigan and Rutgers also kind of fit this, and so there's a little bit of interest there, but UCLA is the one who has him on a visit this weekend. But this one does come with a little bit of, kind of behind the scenes stuff as well, because Liam needs a waiver in order to play college football this season. There are projections saying that he will get this waiver, but as we know with the NCAA, you never know what could happen there. He has really good measurables, 6'5", 240 pounds. He's going to be a senior. He's played a lot of ball, and you can't deny this athleticism. If you go look at this tape, this guy has athleticism. This guy has speed, and it's not just speed against bad competition or anything. You can see it on the film. He did get 15 sacks, and he's been dominating just like he's supposed to. So we'll see what happens here. I think Michigan and Rutgers might get involved if UCLA doesn't close this, but this is definitely something. And he's from Michigan as well, West Branch, Michigan there. So we'll see what happens. Very interesting situation. He's coming from, like I said, Hope, the Flying Dutchman. Look like